Welcome to Smart Women Talk. This is your host, Katana Abbott. I'm a midlife millionaire coach and a certified financial planner, and I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors and thought leaders who are on that leading edge. So join us for conversations on money, business, health, and inspiration, so you can live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Hi, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you to Smart Women Talk. Today, I'm going to be speaking with author, artist, and breast cancer survivor Laura Ross Paul about her history of volunteering as the first woman to undergo cryoablation, or freezing the tumor, to her breast cancer 20 years ago. I also had this non-surgical procedure done just last month, and I'm thrilled to be able to share why you need to be your own advocate. It's so important. So today, Laura and I are going to talk about what cryoablation is and how it works, how to conquer fear with knowledge, and how to approach your medical team to see if you are a candidate. So Laura, welcome to Smart Women Talk. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about your story.
Thank you, and it's great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
You know how I found you?
Yes.
It was your book. And I had been searching and searching. I had been told that I had this breast cancer, and I didn't like what they had told me I needed, which was lumpectomy, radiation, and drugs. And I said, no, I don't want that option. And they said, well, then you'd have to have a mastectomy. And I said, no, I don't want that either. And I had already been researching, and I had found your book. And I read about the cryoablation and that you had come here to Detroit. They said they couldn't help me. But because of your book, and I know that thousands of women have found you because you had that book. So I want you to share a little bit with our listeners and those watching us on the YouTube channel. Share a little bit about your story and how this all came about.
Well, sure. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2003, I also didn't want to get a mastectomy. I had 3 tumors, and the way they were spread over my breast, my surgeon explained that I wouldn't have much breasts left if they did a lumpectomy, and her best recommendation was a mastectomy. And I, like you introduced me, I'm an artist and an art professor, and my specialty is teaching the figures. So I was around naked people probably every day, and I really believe the human form is the best sculpture ever designed by whoever designed it. And I love seeing it whole, two-breasted. And besides, I'm not sure anybody, man or woman, should explain why they don't want to lose a body part. Anyway, I preferred not losing my body part. I saw my mother's radical mastectomy back in the 60s and was quite traumatized by it. And I just thought there must be a better way, and I held off on my saying yes to that mastectomy. My surgeon told me I had about 6 weeks to make a decision what I wanted to do. And I spent that 6 weeks in deep research, and so did my husband. And it was miraculous how we found it, because he couldn't sleep worrying about me. And it was the middle of the night, and we live on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon. And he had some East Coast program on that had an ad that we probably never would have seen otherwise on. And a public announcement came on. A woman was talking about cryoablation for prostate surgery. Turns out she was a volunteer wife of a man that had it for prostate surgery, and it worked great. And she manned a hotline about it. And so my husband called the number on the screen, called the hotline, talked to this woman, And he said, "Is this at all possible for breast cancer?" And she said, "It's not right now, but I heard the surgeon radiologist that came up with it in a speech, and he said this would be a piece of cake on a woman whose breast is outside her body. It would be easy to do." And that was Dr. Peter Littrop from Wayne State Carmanis Hospital, where you were treated. And my husband said, "I'm going to just see if I can get Dr. Littrop on the phone." And he did. And Dr. Littrop called back to interview me. And he said, "I do have this idea. I am doing a study on breast cysts because I want to try it out on those. And you're a woman that's using the internet doing research. That's how it's supposed to work. And if you're willing to come to Detroit and answer our questions, we'll consider it." So we got the hospital team, the director of the hospital, head of radiology, head of surgery, all these bigwigs together. We flew to Detroit. They grilled both my husband and I to make sure that we knew what we were getting into. It was obvious we'd really researched it. And my husband in that meeting asked the question, "If we have this done and it doesn't work, is there any reason why we can't have a mastectomy at that time?" And that question floored them, and they all said, "No. So if you're just willing to be our guinea pig, we'll try you out." And that's how I was accepted, and we had to fly back later and have it done. And at the time, the only probes they had were those that they were using on men. Dr. Littrop had been a pioneer using it for prostate cancer in men, and the probes were quite big, and he used 3 of them with a heavier argon gas. He and some other medical engineers went on to develop a nitrogen gas probe, which is much smaller and much more accommodating for a woman's breast. But on me, they used the big ones. So I might have gotten even over frozen, but I stayed in Detroit about a week to recover. Now they don't use anesthesia. They just use lidocaine, and it's about an office visit. It's done as day surgery. And I think many women go home immediately afterwards. I think you might have. I know my stepmother had it done many years later, and she went home right away. So a lot of differences, but it did work beautifully.
It's funny because I had this biopsy done, and it said that I had cancer, and I found your book, and then I did find through your book somehow there was a link. I have to tell people that you have to do so much research in searching, and that's why I say it's so important to be your own advocate. And so I did finally find Dr. Littrop, but he was at a different hospital here in Michigan. And his assistant said I had to send an MRI there. So I sent the MRI, but they contacted me and said there was no clearly defined area, because when they did the biopsy, they placed a marker, but I bled, and then the marker was evacuated. So he could not see any clearly defined area, and I was not a candidate, and I was heartbroken. So then I went and did more research, and I found a doctor that you know who had been doing cryoablation clinical trials for many years. And I made an appointment there. But after months and months of different testing and all this, when the first thing he had said is he was shocked that he couldn't find anything either. And finally, after 7 months, they couldn't find anything. They told me I was not a candidate. And I looked for 2 other doctors that I interviewed with that were out of state. And it would have meant that I would have to pay cash and then travel out of state with someone. And it had been arduous trying to even talk with those specific doctors or get a quote how much it would be. And so finally, and this was 7 months later, I contacted the same medical center that you went to originally. And this doctor was doing different forms of cryoablation, but like prostate and I think bladder, but it said breast there, but it said still experimental. But I got a hold of this woman there and I asked her, does the doctor do cryoablation? She said, yes. And I asked her, does he take this billing code for my Blue Cross? Yes. I said, oh my gosh, make me an appointment. And I got in right away. The other doctors would not do another biopsy for some reason. He said, let's do a biopsy. And I just want to share for everyone that this is just my journey. It's just Laura's journey. But immediately last fall, when I got this diagnosis, I found a naturopath doctor that Molly McDonald from the Pink Fund. They pay bills for women getting chemo. It's a nonprofit. She sent me to a doctor here that's a naturopath, and he did extensive blood work. He put me with a firm that does DNA testing on a monthly basis to look for free flowing cancer DNA in the body. He did supplements and just a nutrition plan specifically for my blood work. And then I did exercise and reduce stress. I actually took time off. So I believe it's all about your mind, your body, and your spirit and your support. It's not just about not doing surgery and then trying to do something else. And again, it's not for everyone. But the good news was that when I went there and he did this biopsy, he said, you no longer have breast cancer. You have precancer and it's DCIS. And it's going to be very simple. You qualify and they did the procedure and I'm cancer-free now. So hopefully.
That's fantastic. You're an ideal candidate and you tackled that just beautifully. I'm so impressed because I think it's really important for women to take responsibility for their own body. And just think of all that advocacy work you did for yourself. I have a niece that found a lump, and at that time, very treatable with cryoablation, and she could have gotten a trial that all her costs would have been covered. Her hospital system wouldn't allow an MRI, and it took forever. And it was over a year before she finally got the testing she needed to go forward. And by that time, the tumor had grown way too large. She finally did decide to get cryoablation, but she had to self-pay, and it was affordable because it is a rather affordable procedure. But if she'd only been worked with from the very beginning, it would have been a lot easier. And these wait and see the answers that you get, or let's get more tests or whatever, I think cause a lot of women to lose their breast. And it makes me upset and angry. And I think the ones like you that see that, oh my God, my whole system might be out of alignment. Maybe I do need supplements. Maybe there are some natural things that can help me. And they look to alternative medicine as an adjunct to traditional allopathic medicine to work together. Those are the ones that I have seen over and over again be able to keep their breasts and come out cancer-free, healthy, and they get what they want and what they put energy into.
When I mentioned the mindset, I always, right from the beginning, I wouldn't tell anybody because I didn't want anyone having these thoughts. Oh, Katana has breast cancer. She's going to die. I didn't want those thoughts coming at me because I believed that I didn't have it and that my body was miraculous and it was going to heal. But this whole mindset and doing affirmations and making sure that you only surround yourself by people that are supporting you. So not telling everybody. Keeping it quiet. Now, I see a lot of people tell everyone and they get a lot of support that way and they can grow a community of support. So everyone has to do what they're comfortable with. I just did my little nest. I did my little nest and I don't know about you. Did you stay more quiet? Because I know your book is your journal of your experience.
Right. And there is a part in there. I knew I was going to have to be traveling, and I still had a young daughter at home. My boys were off to college, but I knew that I would need help of other people because I had to go out of my system. So my neighborhood was great. A group of women formed around me, and we had a meeting, and I was able to explain to them what I was doing. And I said, this is right for me. I've made a decision, and whatever you might do, just know this is right for me. I'm not here to get anything other than your help taking care of my daughter. My mother-in-law was going to watch her, but she wasn't able to drive, and she'd been raised by people that cooked for her, so she didn't really know how to cook. She was British colonists in Hong Kong, and always had servants, so she never learned to cook. She never learned to drive, but she was willing to take care of my daughter. So my neighbors had to take her to school and bring her meals and that kind of thing. And they were all more than willing to do it and support me. I didn't particularly announce it outside that group. I was laying low about it, but I'm always going to be very appreciative to that group of women wishing me well and taking the burden so I could do this traveling. And that worked out great. I've had 20 years now, and I've just talked to so many women when I've given talks. And one thing that I personally have done is research what's the cause, and I see just what you're saying. It's an attitude thing. We have physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual reasons for illness. All those need to be addressed. And one thing I do advise women when they ask me is to find someone that would address your mental. So perhaps a therapist or someone that has experience through that. Your emotional, your physical, not allopathically, but in a natural medicine way that really keeps track of what you're putting into your body, making sure that your immune system is working at its peak. There is energy reasons that I think are the starter button. And through my insurance, I had to be tested for BRCA because of my sisters and my mother dying of cancer. I don't have BRCA, but my insurance company wanted to get a fix on why I might have gotten it. And because of my teaching and my profession, I was around fumes of solvents more than the safe limit. So they say that was likely. But my therapist found that because I had lost my mother and other family members at an early stage of my life, and I was young enough that I had to deal with survival, and I couldn't really indulge in processing my grief, that it was like a stuck emotion. Mm-hmm. And having stuck emotions that aren't processed can be a cause, the starter button for an illness. That's one thing I found out with so much research. And I think it's good to know. So I think it's good to be healthy about those kinds of things. No matter what, you might avoid a lot of problems. But
and have an open mind.
Yeah.
Try some of these things, because I wanted to add to you I mentioned the emotional, but I did a couple of things there. I went to this place where they just have this special energy going in this building. And you lay there for 2 hours, and this woman has a patent, and her husband was a nuclear scientist, and they have these computers that are giving off this energy in
the scalar rooms. Yeah,
it's a scalar. I think some people may have heard of it, but I did 12 hours there right off. And there were people coming in with holes in their head and scars, and telling me that this is their last shot. Had brain cancer, younger guy who had a stroke, and they were coming, and I went too. And I only did that for about 12 hours, maybe 6 sessions, 6 2-hour sessions. There's a book called The Emotion Code and The Body Code. That's the most recent. And I bought both of those. I had 2 sessions of the Emotion Code and Body Code. And it was to heal the early childhood trauma, because I lost my father when I was just 6 and had very gut-wrenching experience with a stepfather for 9 years, and then a really bad marriage, and at 19. So all that trauma was still in me, and they were able to help me deal with it and release it very quickly. And so we have things out there today that are so different. It wasn't long-term therapy. These things were short, but I did them. And the last thing, I went away to a spiritual health retreat for 2 weeks in Brazil. But when I did get to my doctor who did the cryoablation, they said, do you want to get your biopsy before you leave or when you come back? I said, after I come back. So I had it scheduled as soon as I returned. But we had no sugar, no salt, super healthy food, and fruits from all over the rainforest, the amazing fruits that I've never even had, and just a lot of time to process. It was amazing. You don't have to go to Brazil, but just getting time alone to meditate. And we have tools, don't we? We have so many tools available with the internet.
Yeah, I think all that is readily available. You're right. And it doesn't even cost a lot of money. It just costs commitment and a mindfulness to do it regularly. I treat my life totally differently than I did before. I think I was probably overworking, but that was my own fault, overcommitted. And now I give myself time and I recognize when I'm overwhelmed, and I take that important moment to just stabilize and get back in the now. I work at a pace that is sustainable. I don't push like I used to push, and I make sure I get sleep. I'm a big fan of meditation, and I don't think I would get through a day without doing yoga, and I've trained myself so that I don't need a class. I'm very in tune with my body, where it needs to be stretched, what my body wants, what my body needs. I'm very in tune with it now. And the practitioners I had, I credit so much my yoga teacher just getting me through the whole ordeal and believing there was a way forward, even though we didn't know what it was. I think for women facing cancer, the most important number one thing might be how they deal with fear. And this is not to say anything negative about doctors, because we know they have time constraints and all that. They're going to fill those women with all kinds of statistics, and they will tell them what the gold standard is, what they call the gold standard. And it's always going to be the traditional treatments that haven't changed in 40 years. And one of the talks I gave at a cancer forum in China, I was approached afterwards with my suggestion of having exactly what you had done available to more women at an early stage when they find something suspicious. He said to me, "You are so right. We overtreat people. We tend to use a sledgehammer where just maybe a much smaller tool could be used. We tend to have one size fits all rather than look at the individual and where they are and what." And he said that yes, there is overtreatment. A woman has to know her body and what's right for her and what she is willing to put up with or do or sacrifices. So your body's yours and you are the one that needs to watch over it. You know how it feels to be inside of it. You know what doesn't feel right. I think if you get the information and it doesn't feel right for you, the antidote to fear is education. I'd say get on the computer. Luckily, we have the internet now. Everything, I had notebooks this thick, and I was reading so many medical studies and things like this, that when I would reference certain things that I knew had been done for a while in certain places, my doctors would give their opinion about it, and I knew they didn't know those studies. They hadn't read those studies. What time do they have to keep up on all the latest stuff? I just took the time to really educate myself. My inspiration, even to do the book, I thought I was so naive. I thought, okay, I volunteered. That was great. This has got going. Now it's up to the medical world. I can go leave and go back to my nice life as an artist. But it was the doctors that convinced me, not just doctors here, Dr. Littrop, certainly, but the international doctors. When I spoke at international conferences, they were the ones that beseeched me and said, women have to ask for this. And indeed, that's what's really happening with the women that have contacted me, that when they refuse in their hospital system to have treatment, like you refused what was being offered, and they did find cryoablation and tried it out, and then all their follow-up was done by their hospital system, the hospital system became very impressed with their results and how well it worked for the women and how enthusiastic, and they started to look into it and get enthusiastic. And then that's how it's coming to these other hospital systems. The women are so excited and have filled me in on it because they see the chain reaction, that when you tell someone, they try it, they get excited, they tell. Not every doctor is going to be open or have the time to be open, or every hospital system, but a lot of times it's that interaction between patient and doctor, especially if you have a good relationship and they listen to you and they don't just dictate to you. They're human too, and they want the best for their patients. So it's happening, but it's happening slowly, and we do need the tools. Anyway, that's why I've been.
Oh, you're hold up for the people watching. So that's one of your paintings.
An exhibit, because like you said, I did have a reputation as an artist, and I knew I could get reviews, at least in my local area. I haven't been covered as a cryoablation patient. That's been very ignored, but I am covered as an artist. So I started doing exhibits that was about my journey, and now it's more about the international journey that a lot of women from all over the states, as well as many parts of the world, have either written or called to tell me their stories that were inspired by my story. And it is slowly spreading. It is working, but women first have to find out about it.
We have to be asking. If that's what you were told, is you have to. If women have to demand this, it's in front of the FDA now. The largest cryoablation study ever done, the longest, the largest, and so we just have to keep asking. Even write to Congress and say, we want this, we want it covered by our insurance as an option. And it's less expensive. So the insurance company should want this. It's a fraction of the cost of all the radiation and drugs and all that. It's horrible.
I believe that the doctors are trying to convince the insurance companies because it's better for them. It saves everyone money.
So Laura, we're at the end of our show, and I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your story all these years and being such a pioneer 20 years ago. And I just have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for writing that book, because it's helped not only me, but so many other women out there.
Believe in yourself. That's the one thing I will have as my last word, is believe in yourself and believe in your own knowledge of your body and what's best for you, and really think that through. And if you want to save your breasts or even just not have the traditional treatment, have something that maybe is going to make sure you never have to worry about cancer again. Look into this.
Yes. Yes. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay. And everyone, thanks for being here today. We wish you the best. If you know of someone who has breast cancer, please refer the show to them. Until our next show, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Smart Women Talk is brought to you by Smart Women's Empowerment, a 501c3 nonprofit project of United Charitable. Music by Bill Lucas from his album When It Rains. Available on Apple Music and Spotify. Catch us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and be sure to join our free community at joinsmartwomen.com to access all our free Smart Women resources.